everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Heidi from My Reading Life, and I'm here today to basically wrap up my reading in March. My wrap-ups are a little bit different than probably the normal format, because in my wrap-ups I'm just going to talk about basically my reading statistics for the month, any books that I haven't talked about in past videos, and then any new books that have come into my house in the last month, because you guys know I am trying to keep my TBR at least where it's at, if not reduce it. I would ideally like to reduce it by about 50 books, but I'm also probably going to be just happy enough if it stays where it's at, which is at the beginning of this month, my TBR was at 147 physical books. So I read 11 books total in March, which shocks me because I started off pretty well at the beginning of the month, but then since all the pandemic stuff has been happening, my reading has really slowed down. I found it really hard to concentrate. I've been really, it's difficult. I'm starting to get back into the groove of things. This weekend's actually been really good. I've completed a few books, but that's April, so we won't be talking about those today. But in March, I found it very difficult for at least 2 weeks to focus on my reading. But I did end up reading 11 books, so I'm just going to briefly review the statistics for those books. So of those 11, and I have notes down here, that's why I keep looking down. Of those 11, 2 were BookTube Prize books. They were nonfiction because I was judging a nonfiction round last month. 3 were other nonfictions not related to the BookTube Prize. I read 2 regular straight fiction books, one of which was my Irish readathon pick, The Heart's Invisible Furies. I read 1 fantasy novel, 1 romance novel, 1 historical fiction novel, which was my middle grade March pick. And at the very end, on the last day of the month, I finished a mystery. And that mystery book was The Woman Who Walked in Sunshine by Alexander McCall Smith. I listened to it on audiobook. I haven't talked about it in any of my other videos because, like I said, it was right at the end of the month. And I was really wanting to fit in more mystery books during the month of March, but it just simply didn't. My brain just simply wouldn't focus on that particular genre at the moment. But I was listening to The Woman Who Walked in Sunshine, which is like, I don't even know what number book in the #1 Ladies Detective Agency series, which I love on audiobook. These, I guess you would call a cozy mystery. They're not really a true mystery, but in this series, which is set in Botswana, Ma Ramotswe is our main protagonist. She owns the #1 Ladies Detective Agency, and she and her assistant head detective now at this point, Grace Makutsi, basically solve little mysteries, and there's usually 2 or 3 in each book, and it's some kind of morality issue. Basically, there's not a lot of there's no blood and gore in these mysteries. These are just 2 very nice ladies trying to spread love and kindness, basically, and to help people out where they can. And this book was no different, and it was a balm to my soul. And I would highly recommend anybody to pick up the #1 Lady Detective Agency series in audio, because the lady who reads them, I believe the narrator is Lizette Lacar, I think is her name. She's fantastic. She gets all the accents correct. And it's just such a lovely, soothing, gentle series, and it's perfect for when you're feeling really stressed out. So glad to have finished my month of reading with The Woman Who Walked in Sunshine. And so that is how my reading went for the month. So how does my TBR look? So I said I read 11 books total in March. Unfortunately, only 6 of those books were books that were off my physical TBR shelves. So I had 6 books off my TBR, I'm off these shelves. I brought in 6 books, so it was a wash. My TBR remains at 147 books, which, you know what, I'm all right with. I am really, really okay with that at this point. Status quo is good, right? So let's talk about the books that I picked up in March. The first 3 books I want to talk about are books that I purchased myself for particular reasons. So I picked up a copy of The Invention of Nature by Alexander von Humboldt. I picked up The Invention of Nature, Alexander von Humboldt's New World by Andrea Wolfe. Okay. This is a nonfiction book that I am buddy reading right now with Britta Bowler, and it is all about Alexander von Humboldt, who was a naturalist in the early 1800s and basically is considered the father of our modern understanding of environmentalism. He was a contemporary of, I think, Darwin and some of the other great thinkers, biological thinkers of the time. And he is sort of the first person that started putting together the idea that all things are interconnected in the earth. All creatures, all systems, all habitats, all environments are connected, and we should be looking at them as a whole rather than as individual isolated entities. So also, Alexander von Humboldt was German. So while this book was not written in German, it is about a famous German person. So I think that's really cool and should be something that people pick up if they're reading German books this year for the hashtag Read German Books theme that we're all doing for the whole year. So I think this is another one that sort of slides right in there even though it's not translated. So I'm excited to have that one. And that book and this book, The Mirror and the Light by Hilary Mantel, I purchased from the independent bookstore that I utilize in Bangor, which is 2 hours away from me, but it's my closest indie bookshop. And even though everybody's doing stay at home right now, they are still allowing online orders and shipping to your home. So I purchased The Invention of Nature and this book from them. And wonderful service, came in just a couple days and was delightful all around. And of course, I've been reading Hilary Mantel's Cromwell series over the last few months. This is book 3 that just came out in March. I had not been intending to purchase this book as I was first on my library's hold list for this one. But of course, my library is closed and no one knows when it's going to open again. So I simply couldn't wait. I want to read this one right away. And, what can I say? I have no self-control. So excited to read this, book 3 in the Cromwell series. Hopefully this month in April, I will get to that. And then the last book I bought for myself in March was The Salt Path by Raynor Winn. This is a memoir of this woman, Raynor Winn, and her husband who walked the Southwest Trail in England. And that goes from Somerset to Dorset through Devon and Cornwall. Hopefully that's a little bit better pronunciation, Mercedes, if you're listening. I am trying, honestly. That's a tough one for me. And they were having her husband was having some health difficulties, and they were having money difficulties, and so they just decided that they would live rough and walk this whole path, carrying everything that they needed on their backs. And I wanted to read this book because I had been planning a trip to Cornwall in May, which I talked about in a previous video, but that trip sadly has been postponed. I don't know when we'll be headed over to England at this point, but still planning to make that trip eventually, and excited to read this book. I think I will be buddy reading this with Lindsay in probably May. I think Lindsay and I had talked about reading that one in May. So looking forward to that. Now these next 3 books are also nonfiction, and these were kindly sent to me by my book fairy godmother, Judy. Thanks again, Judy. You are just gifting me with these wonderful books. It's so lovely to have these hardcover nonfiction books to look forward to by some of my favorite authors. So the first one is The Wright Brothers by David McCall, all about the Wright brothers and their invention of the first airplane. You guys know I love David McCall. I have been reading, trying to read all of his books, and I picked up 1 or 2 of his books over Christmas, I think, or sometime the end of last year. And I think I had mentioned on one of my videos that I was going to try to read all of his works, and Judy very kindly sent me this book from her own shelves to add to my McCall collection. So I'll be reading that one at some point. And then also another favorite author She sent me Deadwake, The Last Crossing of the Lusitania by Erik Larson. You guys know how much I love Erik Larson. In the Garden of Beasts is the last book by him that I've read. I am planning to read his new book, I think it's The Splendid and the Vile, in May with some buddies. I don't have my copy of that one yet. Again, I don't think my library is probably going to be open by the time we start that buddy read, so I'm probably going to order that one from my independent bookshop as well. But I have this one now, too, to look forward to. This one's a little bit of a chunkier one, but I've heard really, really good things about Deadwake. This is some folks that I know, this is their favorite Erik Larson, so that's pretty exciting. And then the last one I have is The Big Burn, Teddy Roosevelt and the Fire That Saved America by Timothy Egan. Now, several years ago, I read his book about the Dust Bowl, which was the worst hard time. And that book was the basis for a documentary series that aired on PBS. So that's a lot of times what Timothy Egan is best known for is that book. But this book is all about a big wildfire that happened out west, I believe, I'm not sure, somewhere in the North Pacific, I think. Yeah, Washington, Idaho, and Montana. And so this was a big event. I don't remember the year either. And it doesn't list it. Oh, 1910. And this is, early days of technology and the ability to fight big forest fires and how that was handled, and Teddy Roosevelt's role in all of that. And this one's not too long, actually, so I'm very much looking forward to this. This is a topic that actually really fascinates me, and I love everything to do with Teddy Roosevelt, and nice pictures in this book, so that is fun as well. So that's it. Those are the books I brought into my house during March. So let's hope April is a better reading month for me as far as being focused. I will be judging another round of the BookTube Prize, and I'll be doing fiction this time around. So I've already started on the 6 books that I have to read for that, but I have 2 months to do that in. Have some great buddy reads planned for April. I'm very excited about those. Not least of which is The Invention of Nature, which I've already started with Britta. And this is, you can already see, I'm already tabbing away like mad. Fabulous, fabulous writing in this book. So very glad to be reading that. I think that's it for my March reading. Thank you all very much for watching. I hope you're doing well and finding lots of great books to read, and I'll talk to you later.